We have come back from Georgia and we have implemented things like grow gatherings and all of these people are all in and Tom is all in. Tom is so all in on effectively communicating and marketing and leading the church.
And planning.
Like, we have begged for years to have more than just a couple weeks lead time. And Tom seems to be on board with this. Except we plan, build, and execute an entire fall campaign in 2 weeks.
Yeah, which is, like, on one hand, we understand that, like, we seem to have a fall campaign every year.
Yes.
And I think this is where, when you're in this culture and you've now learned how this culture operates, that you excuse the lack of foresight and planning. You don't quite see that. You don't see it as that. You don't understand that this is like, hey, let's do something. And in 2 weeks, it's, like you said, planned, built, executed, organized, all of that within 2 weeks. And we didn't understand that when you're in it, because some part of you is like, we do this annually.
Faith can feel like hearts and butterflies until someone lights a match and burns it all to the ground. Welcome to the Burning Butterflies podcast.
The sad thing is that there's abuse of every kind within the church. But the spiritual abuse is the stuff that just
It's a place there shouldn't be abuse. Like, there just shouldn't be abuse in a place that claims Jesus.
Well, it ruins your soul.
If you're new here, we suggest listening to our prologue episode first. This is the story of two women's journey through toxic church culture and spiritual abuse, all while finding healing in the end.
Sometimes it's just the facts, and if you get offended by it, that's a you issue. And if we can't be mature enough to have these conversations, even if some of the topics are difficult, then shame on us.
You're expecting, if you are at a certain level of service or leadership within Come As You are expecting a fall campaign.
Right. But then you have to understand that it's not like it was ever like promoted prior to the thought of having it ever. So it wasn't like, okay, we're sitting down, we're having a meeting. What's going to happen in the next 6 months? What is our church going to be doing in the next year? Make sure we get the fall campaign on that. It was always toted as, we'll have one if God says, and we won't if he doesn't tell us to. Same thing with like the annual park event. Like, even though you knew this was an annual thing, it was always left to only if the Spirit leads us. Everything is, this is how, never having a official church schedule or anybody sitting down and planning a year or 6 months or a quarter. Like, that was never done at this church. It was, if the Spirit leads us, we'll do it. And if he doesn't, then we won't.
Yeah.
And not how you run things.
We've discovered, so you could go back, listen to previous episodes. I really encourage you to go back and listen to previous Patreons. We have discovered that finances were a huge thing that led to, if God was leading the big summer park event or not, really translated into, if we have the money in the account to justify it. And so you expect kind of things like that, right? But because the fall campaigns never had anything to do with money. It was just something that we all did to kind of get us all on board. And we've kind of talked about this in other episodes of, like, sometimes it was as simple as like the entire church was going to take Master Life, or our fall campaign one year was, we did all of the classes, 101, 201, 301, and 401, back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
And that was the year that, like, the whole church took 401 all together.
Yeah.
Because
no, I feel like the fall campaign was definitely in this is how you keep people at your church. This is how you get people into your church. This is how you get the people excited. Fall is a time where people start to fall away. And this is how you do it. Like, because we've talked about that, the behind the scenes, like lingo that Tom would bring to the stage and flat out tell you, hey, I'm manipulating you. Like, this is what I'm doing. This is how we are. And we're all like, okay, manipulate us some more. But I just think, like, going into this and understanding that these fall campaigns and the fact that we planned something, you went to a conference, Tom got excited, and in 2 weeks we're like, we're doing that. That is actually how things were done forever.
On the regular. Oh, like, yeah. No,
regular.
100%.
I'm excited. This is what we're going to do. It's planned, done, organized, executed. 2 weeks. Everybody's on board. And then, great. And then the next thing, 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Well,
2 weeks.
So before we get into actually what this fall campaign consisted of, I just want to clarify. Tom gets excited about something. Tom picks what we're doing and then hands it to Amanda and says, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, now make it happen.
Make it happen. And, before me, there was people, who had that role before me. But at this stage in the game, in the timeline, it was me. So he hands me, here's the study we're going to do. I'm going to line up my sermons with this study. And you also have to keep in mind, he doesn't plan out there were times where it would be like a Friday and he would just be giving us what his new sermon series was going to be for that Sunday because he just decided. And like there were times where, because we would typically print the bulletins and print all of his sermon notes and stuff, we would do all of that on Thursdays. And there were times where we had to come in on Fridays just to print because he didn't know yet. And it was always well, God hasn't revealed it to me. So we all were convinced that Tom would sit in his office and just pray and seek the Lord for what the next sermon series was going to be. But if you look at all the sermon series that were done under those circumstances, he went through his Rolodex of all of the sermon series he's done in the past and was like, which one haven't I done in a while? What can I rename, kind of rebrand, throw a few new verses in?
Yeah. And you know what I feel like is those last, oh shoot, I forgot. That's what I really think, because he really put no effort into a sermon ever.
No.
Everything was somebody else's material. And he was just doing what Saddleback Rick Warren was doing. And I mean, I never wrote a sermon. I just cheated and took sermons from somebody else. And I really think that those moments were like, oh, because he would pick something, it would last 4 to 6 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he wouldn't have to do anything after that. It's picked, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you're out of sermons. We need a new one. Oh, yes, I'm waiting on God, right? That's what it was.
Well, and you could always tell when he got a fresh batch, because I'm not exactly 100% sure how it worked, but I think either he continued to pay or it was a subscription thing, or he could order a new set. But you could always tell when he got a fresh batch of sermons that were new sermons, because he would be so excited that he almost didn't want to finish the current series he was on.
Yeah.
He would want to jump ahead. So every single sermon, if we're talking about we're on this little 4-week sermon series, and on week 2 of that sermon series, he gets
an email hey, we have new whatever.
Yeah, here, you could buy these new sermons. I think he got so excited, like a little kid. He would, for the next 2 weeks, those last 2 weeks of that previous series, he wouldn't finish it out. He would keep, oh, well, you got to wait till this next sermon series and talk it up so much.
I feel like he has ADHD. Like there's so much to how his systems worked that I'm like, I think you just have ADHD, sir.
Yeah. Well, it's either that or like I saw a TikTok on this guy was talking about like narcissistic leaders
Yeah.
and how they are constantly seeking for ways to like have people view them the way they want to be viewed.
Yeah.
And they're constantly seeking to make everything about themselves
Yeah.
and put themselves in the best light, that when there is something that like they have it planned out that I'm going to do this and it's going to make me look so good, they physically cannot control themselves in order to like put the plot forward. Like,
right. Yeah.
They,
yeah.
They can't like build the suspense because they're so desperate for people to like them and see them in the light that they wanted. And so it could be some ADHD. It could be
like, no, they hyper focus. I mean, like just because they have symptoms and show up, but like, I mean, but yeah, like I could see that. Like here, I've got the next, and that would be why we couldn't plan for a year. We couldn't plan 6 months in advance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these grow gatherings, which were an attempt to plan for 3 months. Just remember the conversations and how every time that people would come in and try to make this a legitimately run church, like how the struggle was and how difficult it was. And I think there's a lot of that because it was so centered around Tom, because everything was run by Tom.
And it was always
Tom's story. This is Tom's idea. God's voice is actually Tom. There is no God within that church other than Tom. And whether he can make it financially work, whether he thinks it's a good idea, like it's crazy to me looking back how you just see how everything that was done and how God worked in that church was all really just Tom's idea and what he made happen. Like the level of supernatural stuff that happened was really just based on the ability of Tom to make things happen.
Yeah. And when you look at that and you look at the people who tried to plan ahead, do you know how many times I was told like, well, this is, you know, you're just being controlling and you have to let go of that. That is your sin. If you feel like we need to plan out ahead, like, why are you,
you're not
what is
the Spirit?
Yeah. And you're not giving God room to work in your life. And if God says, because look what he did to Abraham, he told Abraham, go do this. And at the last minute, he changed his mind and he didn't have to sacrifice Isaac. He offered him a sacrifice. And so that's what you're doing. You're getting so far ahead of God that you're just going to hyper focus on your plans. And then you're not going to be able to hear the voice of the Lord if he's changing direction.
Right. Because that's what Tom is doing, flying by the seat of his pants, but calling it the Holy Spirit.
Yes. So we're all in for these grow gatherings, right? We're going to do these grow gatherings. But we have to do a fall campaign because we are at this conference in Georgia and we come back and not everyone is fully on board with the grow gatherings and stuff, but people are on board to like want to better the church.
Yeah.
Right. And so even people who were team Young Gun and Young Gun has left are on board for what do we need to do to build the church up.
Yeah. And honestly, for whatever reason, I feel like this pastor that captivated Tom in Georgia, I feel like I would be safe to say this is the first person since Rick Warren to captivate Tom that he feels like he needs to follow this guy.
Yeah. And it's something completely different. This guy does not have any book deals. He does not he puts his sermons out on a stream just like everyone else, but he's not selling stuff. Like he's not doing any of that. All he's doing is he's connecting with people online.
Yeah.
That's all he's doing.
It's crazy.
And
so whatever this guy had, Tom was like inspired by.
I think it was I can do this for free.
Yeah.
I'm having to pay for XYZ.
Yeah.
I can do this for free and grow my church and bring in more money.
Yeah.
And it's costing me nothing.
Yeah. It's insane because the amount of people over the years that have come in with great ideas and the skills to pull it off, right? The amount of people that have come in and out of the church with ideas and the skill set to implement, pull it off, and make it a successful church over the years is mind-blowing to me. But Tom was not inspired by them. He would not put himself in a position underneath them for them to lead. And so nothing ever happened.
Correct.
I remember conversations in any time that I was involved in leadership in the church of something that was brought up because especially Brandy being familiar with Saddleback, myself being familiar with Saddleback and the way that things are run. You're talking about a church that's in a location where the things that people do for a living are not just like, we're not talking about middle of nowhere, Colorado, where there's not like the company you work for might be a company that does things internationally, but we don't live in the movie capital of the world, let's just say, right? And so, yes, we have great facility management people in the church. We have great business people who do things or like warehouse or, agriculturally, right? But the guy that comes and does our sound doesn't work for Disney, right? Yeah. Where at Saddleback, your sound guy might also work for Disney or Universal or MGM. Like, they are in an area where they are able to do these media, which because Come As You Are is so focused on its worship and its production of things, but it's not pulling from people who their everyday life is to do this, is what I'm saying. And I remember these conversations coming up. And so, yeah, like it fascinates me that Tom went to this conference and there's something about this pastor. And it might be that, yeah, it was, hey, I actually have the pool of people to do this that Tom thought, or somehow this kept him in the top seat and he felt like he could do it's mind blowing to me because so many people did come into the church and try to implement these same exact things. But for some reason, this guy from stage says it and it's okay. And so there might be just a level of it kept Tom as the leader versus, because I think about Chimney, right? And I think about his experience and what he brought and how, he was like, no, this is how churches run. This is how churches run. This is how you have to run your church and you need to implement these things. Tom would never bow to that for him. Like that would have put Chimney ahead of Tom.
Yeah.
Tom would have had to humble himself and allow Chimney to lead to implement any of his things. And that wasn't going to happen. And if it did, it would have taken certain motivational factors, I think. So anyway, sorry, 100%. That was my little rant.
No, 100%. Yeah. And so Tom is looking for ways to, like you said, stay in control, but give people the illusion that they are equals with him in the kingdom of God.
Right.
An illusion is in all caps in that sentence because Tom would use verses and throw verses out there about how, the first is last and the last is first. And, Jesus loves everyone equally and all of these things. But when it came down to it, I see zero evidence that he actually believed that.
Yeah.
Nothing about his leadership, his life, his faith, his preaching, aside from parroting verses, shows me that he believed he is just as important as Twyla who cleans the toilets. Right. And that right there is the specific example he would use. Yeah. He would say Twyla's name from stage. in the kingdom of God, Twyla, she's in here, she's cleaning the toilet. Why did Twyla have to forever, for all eternity, be the one who cleaned the toilets?
Right.
There was nothing else about that woman to him that...
No, other than she was the maid. Like, that was it.
Yeah.
That was her narrative from him.
Yeah,
She's
100%.
just the maid.
Yep.
And the maid is more important than me in the kingdom of God. I'm the humblest servant of all.
Yes. I am so humble, even though I stand up here on stage and I have the microphone and I make all the decisions and I control everything.
Yeah.
I am so humble.
And not everybody can have the microphone. Okay. But like, that is in this whole narrative of this whole story of the non-denominational church as a whole, the inconsistencies, the contradictions, like the illusion. It's all an illusion,
Mm-hmm.
and
how do you feed into that? How do you get people to buy the illusion, continue to drink the Kool-Aid? You have fall campaigns.
Yep.
Whatever it is that is causing dissension in the ranks, you do a fall campaign over it. So do I think before we went to Georgia, Tom knew we were doing 40 days of community as our thing? Nope. But do I think he was looking for something and maybe he thought he would find it at this conference to unify the body, because we've had this huge division over Young Gun leaving and we need to get everyone focused on building up the church, and less focused on what Tom is doing behind the curtain.
Right. And your thing is that you are a church for the community. So, but we have to have a strong community within us before we can go out and be a part of the community. We have to do both.
Mm-hmm. And why we were at that conference, because I have gone back and I've looked at the notes I took at that conference. That's one of the few things I kept, because it was in a separate journal that I had aside from like just my normal come as you are stuff. I had a separate journal that I took to that conference, and there was a session on who are you as a church at your core? What are your core values? And
that's crazy, because that's what everything became about during this time.
So we had core values, whatever, that we would have printed on the back of each bulletin of like, who are we? And it was like, this is why we named the church Come As You Are. Come as you are. We accept you, wear whatever you want to wear. If you want to wear your Sunday best, or you want to come, comfy casual, your past doesn't define you. And all of the BS that we use to get people to be all in.
Yeah.
That we weren't really holding ourselves to that as a core value. It's just something that was printed on the back of the bulletin that became like it was there every week. So no one even looked at it unless it was your first Sunday in the church.
Yeah.
No one looked at it.
And that's all it was there for, was to paint a picture of who we are. This is, and it's all it is this is what every church is.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day.
And so that's what this talk was about, was it was less like, what do you want people to know about you? And more like, who are you at your core? Right? Because this guy's talk was basically like, so many churches are like, Jesus is, Jesus is the Savior, and we believe in the Holy Spirit. We believe in the Trinity, or the Bible is the inherent word of God. All of these things, and it's like, okay, well, like, that's not your core value. That's not who you are at your core. That's your theology.
Yeah.
So, like, you need to be communicating who you are at your core. Who is Come As You Are at its core? Well, we say we are a church for the unchurched, and we love our community.
Yeah.
So how do we effectively not only get everyone in the church on board with that, but then get the community as a whole on board with that? Oh, Rick Warren has something for sale for just that occasion. Isn't that lovely? Almost like we bought a kit that told us who we're going to be as a church.
Yeah.
And then Rick Warren sold us another kit for a Bible study to be like, this is who you are as a church.
Well, and I think that it's so interesting how coincidentally, but it's not coincidence, it's God. Like, we would be so amazed at, like, oh my goodness, we're thinking about this. And look, it's a book. God did that, right? How were we on the same page? Not realizing that 6 months ago, because, people plan things out for, like, this is where that not planning. Okay. But there are big church organizations that have been planning for like a year on their calendar that they were going to launch a Bible study that took a year to be written on this day called How to 101 Community, right? Whatever. It's called whatever. And then by the time we're getting an inkling of it, we think that we had this thought and look, this book appeared when it's really like, no, those emails were probably coming to Tom's inbox for months, and
yeah,
even if it's subconscious, he's seen this word or he goes to this conference and then he thinks he comes up with this great idea, but really it's been in his face 8 times. And then he goes, oh yeah, let's do that. And then he's like, oh, look, here's a book. Isn't that great? Yeah. We're on the same page with Rick Warren.
Or we are so willing and so desperate to see things, see signs. Yeah. We're looking for God. We're looking for the Holy Spirit in every little thing.
Yeah.
And we're desperate to see it. So I did the Go conference, right? It was based off of go into all the world, right? Like, send me, I will go. Those are like the 2 main verses, right? I think it was right before this conference. Right before I went to this conference, I bought a book about church communication. And one of the chapters was about going and actually doing. And I took a picture of it and I circled the word in the book and I highlighted stuff around it and I took a picture and I posted it on my social media about how, look what God does. I did this conference and look, he's using my word. He's using like my word. It's my word. Yeah, my word is the word go.
Right.
He's using my verses. He's using my word in this other person's book. And then I just found this book. This is affirmation.
Yeah. Where I think that VBS is actually like a micro experiment to show us how this all goes down, because like, how many churches in the United States do the same VBS every year?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or within 3 years of each other, right? And then we sit there and we go, oh my gosh, this is God unifying his people because we're all in the same season. We are all putting out the same thought, right? The same idea, even though we're all implementing it differently. But I'm sorry, just group publishing putting out a VBS puts 80% of churches in the same thinking. And that also means pastors are getting the same information. Come on.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about the 40 days of community. This is a great conversation, but let's go. Hey, let's go. It's time to go. I've been inspired by God. We have to go.
Don't use my word. Gosh.
You inspired me to
go. So, yes, we are all going to go and do these community groups, right? So we divide into groups. And you're supposed to divide into groups with people. Tom was very adamant. He did not want you to be in groups with people that are, quote unquote, your friends. He pushed it from stage. He wanted you to branch out, be with people you didn't know, because that's part of this. We need to regrow our church community. Churches that die are churches who have cliques. And so we are a unified body. We are one family. And we are going to love one another, because love is more than just a word. It's a lifestyle at Come As You Are.
Yeah.
And we are going to learn to love new people. So if I would have to get the list, so you would sign up for a group. So Tom picked who the group leaders were, as per usual. Tom and Charlotte would be like, here are people we would like to be facilitators, group leaders, people who we know are going to sling the Kool-Aid and redirect any conversations that may be anti-Come As You Are, anti-Tom, pro-Young Gun, anything like that. They need to be well-versed in the propaganda. And so Tom and Charlotte, we get a list of here's who's going to be leaders. You need to call them and ask them if they would be leaders. We put a thing in the bulletin of like, sign up if you would like to be a group leader. There are people who signed up that were not chosen to be group leaders, and they were told, oh, I'm sorry, we have plenty of groups. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. We're going to keep your name for next time. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. Tom went through that list and he was like, no, absolutely not. And then he would give us other people's names.
Yeah.
So I would call people and ask and basically be like, well, we need more group leaders. No one's signing up. Tom thinks you would be a great option. When in reality, we had people signing up.
Yeah. Half the people were being told, there's not enough people. We need you. They didn't volunteer. Mm-hmm. They did not want to lead, but they were manipulated into leading. And the other half of the people were being told, we have plenty of leaders. We don't need you.
Yep. And so
all based on one man's opinion of whether you could lead a group or not.
Mm-hmm. Justin and I were not to lead a group originally. We were not going to lead a group. Honestly, we were supposed to be in a group with Tom and Charlotte. Tom wanted me in a group with him.
Huh.
But
that's interesting. I'm dying to tell you about my group.
Barry and Miss America have this gaggle of children. And we have well established that we do not do childcare for things like this. You need childcare, you need to figure it out. Or you join a group that they're fine with you bringing your kids, right? We create a group for Barry and Miss America.
Yeah.
They don't want to go to other people's houses. They want to lead a group at their house, but Tom doesn't know them well enough to let them lead a group. But Tom knows he wants them to be invested.
Yes, because he's a doctor.
And so we're not going to go to
we
other
lost
people's...
our other doctor. They left a few years ago. So we need a new doctor in the church.
So, yeah.
The budget. We need another doctor in the budget.
Yes. And so Charlotte approaches me and she's like, would you be willing to lead a group in the church? Like, so they wouldn't come to your house. You would do it at the church. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess. Like, do we need? Like, because at this point, everyone had groups. Like, all the groups were formed and, like, it was kind of like Barry and Miss America were, like, the odd ones out. They had a problem with every group.
Yeah.
And so Tom and Charlotte sat down with them and were like, what are your problems with these groups? And so they had me develop a group 100% to cater to everything. So then they couldn't say no to joining a group.
Right. And we made these accommodations out of love. This is how we love you. This is how God loves. We're going to accept you as you are. We've told you to come as you are. And so bring your crazy and we will accommodate it.
Yep. And where Miss America is a little fine with Amanda because, I've thrown her grandma a funeral.
Yeah.
And that in her mind went well. And so I could be in a group with Amanda. That's fine. We could probably do that. But it would have to be at the church because we're not going to other people's houses that we don't know.
Yep.
And I'm not going to have my kids exposed to things like you have a TV at your house and you have movies and your kids play video games or, whatever her hangups were. The kids were allowed to play in the gym at the church with gym equipment. So football, basketball, dodgeballs, whatever. But keep in mind, our oldest kids are 8th graders. We have 2 8th grade boys. And then we have like a little one. Like we have a couple toddlers, like 1 2-year-olds, right? And so we're not playing dodgeball. I'm like, we're not doing that because you boys are going to get too wild. You're going to forget that there's little kids in here and someone's going to get hurt. So I take dodgeball off the table. So what we come up with, that is the only thing that will keep this wide age group of children happy, is I would give them different, and I had to come up with all of this. I had to come up with entertainment for the children, and my kids had to be the children's ministry leaders of the night. So essentially, Barry and Miss America wanted their kids to do an activity. They couldn't just play. They were only allowed to be in the gym, but they wanted them to have something that would be some sort of a lesson. But no adult was going to be there to teach the lesson. So at the beginning of every group, we would read a Bible verse, and then we would have to, I would have different parts of the verse written out on cards, and I gave them my kids had a wooden marble track, how you could try to make the marble go through obstacles. And then we would get out pool noodles and chairs and tables and all this stuff. And they would have to build their track. So a marble would go from one end of the gym to the other end of the gym. And then they would put their cards to it was the marble was going to read the verse as it went down the track. And so they would get so much set up in a night, and I would take a picture of it. So then when we would come back a week later, we couldn't leave it set up, right? Because we can't just leave stuff set up in the gym. We use the gym for other things. So I would take a picture of it. Then me and my family would have to come early, set everything back up the way it was the week before so they could continue building.
This is insane. That's insane.
Yeah. And so they were in the gym and we were in the large classroom, and we would leave both doors open. So we're trying to have adult conversations, have an actual Bible study, but we need to listen and have eyes on the children.
Yeah.
Because there's no adult there.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Instead of just being great, you had fun that you had. And then that's the part that gets me is the okay, we're going to do this. And then you come back next week and you do something different, not the we're going to show up early and put this back to keep these people happy. The hoops that I didn't realize the hoops to jump through to make these people happy was started at this point. It's already, this has already started.
Yep. And Tom specifically told me verbatim, whatever you need to do to keep them invested.
Yeah. That's crazy.
They're looking for a reason to walk away from God.
To manipulate.
Don't give them that reason.
To walk away from God. Their checkbook is going to walk away from me. I need you to keep them happy. Okay, anyway.
Yeah.
You want to hear about my group before we go on?
Sure. Yeah.
So there were 5 married couples and 1 single lady in our group. And Froggy and I, in our 40s, were the youngest people in our group.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. That's what I got.
Well, you definitely weren't with your friends.
Yep. And the other 4 married couples were the token mentor marriages.
We have been married for all these years, and we love the Lord. And we are here to embark our wisdom onto you young whippersnappers.
And they were all retired.
So they were all in for this because they had nothing better to do for the rest of the week. Their whole week revolved around this group, probably.
Yeah. If that wasn't orchestrated on purpose, because Froggy and I are too old to be with young families, even though we have, like, this is now, like, this is insane to me. We are being put in a group so that we can learn to be old people who are retired. Maybe that'll settle Froggy down, right? Like, yes, you have
See
young
what
kids.
you could have.
Yeah, like I have a 6th grader
Mm-hmm.
at the time and an 8th grader, right? And a senior in high school. So I have children in my home at this time, but I need to start hanging out with the retired people because that's going to be the answer.
Well, because to be fair, we did try to get you to hang out with people your own age during the play, and then like we saw how that led into the Valentine's Day fiasco. So
Yeah, well, let's put this into like ginormous perspective, right? When I met Froggy and got married, I was treated like a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You can't, no hanky-panky.
So from 2011 to 2019, I'm now retired. Let's just put that into perspective. I am not at retirement age. But
No.
the best thing for Froggy and I is to be settled down and be mentally retired so that we stop causing problem. But that was planned
Mm-hmm.
and manipulated and manufactured that we needed to be in that group. Of all the groups we could have been in, of all the people around our age doing, the retired people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which now I think about it, I'm like, I think my group was manufactured too. Because I was like, we were kind of like this weird group. So I knew it would be me and Justin and Barry and Miss America. But then there was only 2 other couples with us. And one of them, they were heavily involved in the beer ministry. And like, she was like one of best friends with beer ministry wife. And so she definitely wasn't my friend. So I think they got told they couldn't be with their friends and they just stuck them wherever they could, right? But this other couple was a couple that like they wouldn't attend Come As You Are very regularly. They would kind of come and go. They really weren't big in like serving or getting involved in stuff. They would show up to the big things, like they would serve at like the big summer park event or things like that. But they tithed a ass load.
Yeah, they were the money people at the time.
And they were on this kick where they were trying to live simply. So they had a crap ton of money, but they were living simply. And so they would, like, to the point where she was like, we only have a small trash bag full of trash for the whole week between the two of us. Because we just live so simply. Like, they had sold so much of their stuff, and like, I think it was like her mom or his mom or something was living in the main portion of the house, and they had moved into the unfinished basement and were trying to live so simply because their eventual goal was to sell their house and like live in a van.
Yeah.
And
your
so
group was totally curated
because
to show Barry and Miss America that people with money,
yeah,
or here. You bring your money, doctor.
Yeah.
Bring your money and meet these other people with money.
And Barry and Miss America had this weird, like, I mean, we've kind of talked
organic
about, like,
granola bar lifestyle.
Yep, and all of this, and so they really gravitated towards that couple. So I like you talking about your group. I'm like, I think my group was that was completely orchestrated. I was there to sling the Kool-Aid, and that other couple was there to like, look, we're just like you. You have people, you know, because we come rolling in. I'm sorry, I have to show up an hour early to set everything up and turn on the heater, and we're in the large classroom. So like, to watch this, I have to roll the cart in, and we got to set up the DVD player so we can watch Rick Warren in his Hawaiian shirt tell us about community. And we have to watch a DVD, so I have to get the projector set up and all of this crap, right? And set everything up for the kids. So yeah, when you show up, my kids probably have, you know, the remnants of their McDonald's chicken nuggets and, you know, whatever else I had to bribe them with that night in order to put up with Barry and Miss America's nightmare children.
Yeah.
Because my kids would be like, please don't make us go.
Yeah.
Please, those kids are so, like, they're mean, and they, like, please don't make us go play with them. And I would just be like, guys, we got to make it through. Like, it's 40 days. We can make it through 40 days.
Yeah.
And we need to love them. And they just have never done church before. Because remember, she told me all of this crap.
Yeah. You're like, they're still learning. They just don't know
at the funeral. Yet. Like, they just don't know. And he reiterated some of that stuff in our group.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, during discussion questions and stuff, and this is what I thought was really odd, was she would want to talk about stuff and participate in discussion, and she would get excited and start sharing.
Yeah.
And he would put his hand on her leg.
Interesting.
And she would shut down, and then she wouldn't talk for the rest of the night.
Weird.
And I'm like, that's freaking weird.
Yeah.
Like, to the point where even, like, my husband noticed it.
Yeah.
And, like, he doesn't pick up on stuff like that. And so, like, he even thought it was weird.
Yeah.
And then in the group, he admitted that he had never read the whole Bible. And so everyone was, like, super encouraging to him. Like, yeah, like, you know, we could get you on, like, a reading plan. Like, you know, especially January 1st, like, you know, read the whole Bible in a year. They have plans that go with every day. Like, you know, yeah, we can do this with you. And, you know,
do you feel like everybody, because I've been in these situations before where you feel like this is like fresh newbie and your job is to encourage them and get them resources, and everybody's kind of put in that position of being the big brother. Yeah.
Yep, they are baby Christians, and we are here to help them along.
Yeah.
And we're giving them their little spiritual formula, and we're preparing them. And this is your first step. You've been having just milk coming on Sundays, but you took the steps to join this group. And so now you're having, you know, like rice cereal and baby food, spiritual food, but we're preparing you because that's not going to be enough for you. You're going to want spiritual steak someday.
Yeah. And, for me in this group, I was really checked out. And
Yeah.
I'm like done, right? Like I love a good social time. I love getting together every week. There's snacks. I love the people that we met with, but I was there for that reason. Like I was not there to participate in this group. I was there to show up, check a box, and get my little like social people, filling, basically. That's all I was there for. I was there for a good time. I was not there really. I was whatever happened while you guys were in Georgia, like I was done. I was done. I was over it. I was done. Like I was working on figuring out whatever. Like I don't even know at that time. Like there was no serious. I wasn't at the point where I was plotting to leave yet, but I was done. Absolutely done. And I was miserable in my marriage. I had a really great job, a really great career, and I was done with church. I was checked out. I wasn't participating. Like I have really now sold my soul to the restaurant devil, and my whole life revolves around my job and just making it through every day. And my home life is miserable, because I'm the breadwinner. Like I'm amazing. I'm doing all these great things, and yet I have to bow to this.
So funny. Like my group was curated to get Barry and Miss America to be all in.
Yeah.
I think your group was curated to like bring you back to that like pious wife mindset.
Oh yeah, totally. Like absolutely 100%. Like totally. And I mean, even thinking about like the lady, like I said, we were the youngest at just over 40. So even the single lady was well past retirement age. And I almost wonder, like, I mean, she was there because those were her peers, she's probably on one that was there just because those were her peers. But yeah, like, also I could see Tom being like, let's put her in there so Melissa could see what a single old lady looked like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, maybe there was something to that. Maybe not. I don't give him that much credit, but I was completely checked out, and so that was my participation level.
Over on our Patreon, we're going to talk about specifically this single older lady.
Yeah.
Because some things were brought up.
There's some tea in my group.
Her view on marriage didn't line up quite enough with the Christian, these stereotypical retired Christian couples and the rest of the group. And you found a little bit more common ground with her.
I did.
And so...
Yeah. And what's really interesting, and I guess this is the whole thing, is that I don't think this lady liked me, and I don't think she understood that I was relating to her. Like, yeah, and I wish I could have told her, no, I was on, like, you and I would have been okay together. Like, I don't know. And then her and Froggy had beef. And it's interesting. That's about the cool stuff that I didn't participate in any of it, but the cool stuff that came out was that this old lady and Froggy had beef, and this lady and I had a lot of common understanding when it came to marriage.
Yeah. So head over to Patreon because that episode is already up for you, and we're going to talk about like just how women were trapped in their marriages in within these Christian circles and these high control Christian organizations and churches, and the desperation that comes when you want out and divorce is not an option. So head over there. That's a great episode. You're going to want to take a listen to that. But if you weren't do you remember what projects your group did, because like the whole premise of this was you were supposed to do 3 projects. You were supposed to do something together as a group. So whether it was go out to dinner or do something like that, you were building your group, right? Then you were supposed to build up the body. So you were doing a service project for the church. And then you were supposed to do a service project for the community. So if you were
here's how this
just for the snacks.
This is how the conversation went down. I had no opinion. When the majority of people said something, I was like, yeah, I vote for whatever the majority. Like, I was on board. I seriously was there for the brownies.
Yeah, sounds great.
No joke. Okay. I have absolutely no idea what we ended up doing, but I know that it was the same as other groups because somebody was like, this group is doing this. That's a great idea. And I went, yeah, perfect. Done. Let's do it. Like, my answer was always to like move it along because they would have sat and mulled it over forever. And I just remember, like, I think I was working and I was like, well, I'll be at work. So you guys do whatever, right? For the group project, the group meal that we were supposed to do. I remember that, and I couldn't go because I had to work. And then I feel like a lot of the groups chose to help Twyla around the church. And I think our group also chose that. Again, I was at work and didn't go. And then I have absolutely no idea. I remember it being like the easiest community group project, right? It wasn't anything that required a lot of investment or time or effort. It was just, yeah, let's do this. This sounds good. And I think there was another group doing the same thing. And again, I had to work, so I did not participate. But the brownies were good.
Well, my snacks in my group freaking sucked because
I had all the old ladies that liked to bake. And they knew
no.
that I was gluten-free at the time. And so, like,
my whole group was like sugar-free, gluten-free, flavor-free. It sucked. It was terrible. We seriously had like vegetables.
Sorry about it.
And like I would bring ranch dressing, and like me and Justin and like the beer ministry lady would be the only ones who participated in the ranch dressing, and everyone would just like, this is so wonderful, gnawing on a raw carrot. Like, yeah, it was, I'm jealous you got brownies.
Yeah.
My group, so keep in mind, I'm doing a group, but then I'm also trying to like coordinate all of this through the office as well. And so if your group wants to do something for the church, then you need to like coordinate it with us so that we can, and so many people, like seriously, I think we had maybe a dozen groups and like 10 of them decided they were going to help Twyla.
Yeah.
And they were going to clean the church. And so the problem with that is that everyone wanted to do it because there's like a week in the study that's your week to do that project.
Yeah.
So everyone wanted to do it that week. So then we had to just kind of divvy it out. Like, well, you guys are going to do the classrooms and stuff. And so I tried to steer them more towards like the stuff that really didn't get done on a regular basis. Like, if you're going to do all the little kid classrooms, why don't you pull all the toys out? Like, let's sanitize all the cabinets and everything like that. Because we should have been doing that on a weekly basis. Were we? No, because it doesn't matter. Because I think in Charlotte's mind, like, well, the kids play with it on Sunday and then it just sits there. So any germs would die over a week. Like, the fact that we didn't like break out in hand, foot, and mouth is pretty spectacular, honestly. The only time we deep clean classrooms is like if someone had like, they would call and be like, so we had strep. Everyone threw up when we got home from church on Sunday. Or like if there was lice, like we would deep clean everything if there was lice, right? So I tried to steer them more doing like those types of things, but like everyone wanted to do it at the same time. So it really wasn't a super big help to Twyla, because keep in mind, she's in a group also. So she was coming and doing whatever her group wanted to do anyway. But like it gave her a week off.
Yeah.
But she still had to come in and check and make sure stuff was done. Like she still had to like come in and spot clean and stuff. So it really honestly wasn't a super big help to her. I think my group, we ended up like we steamed and vacuumed all of like the sanctuary chairs and carpets and straightened the rows and stuff out. So
and what did you do for your outreach project?
We coupled like our little like what we were supposed to do to build up a group. We coupled that the same day we did our outreach project. So like we had everyone over to our house, which was a very big deal for Barry and Miss America to bring their kids to our house. They asked a ton of questions, and I had to basically say like, we won't turn the TV on. I had my kids put all of like their video games and anything like tablets, all of that. And it's not like my kids are like iPad kids. Like, I mean, my kids played outside a lot, but like I had to promise that I would put all of this stuff away so their children wouldn't see it. And so like downstairs at my old house, like where I used to do daycare, like that was kind of like that became like my kids' living room. And so they had video games and Legos and toys and all of that kind of stuff. And so the kids didn't go downstairs. They only played in the backyard. So we had like backyard games set up for them. And then we did a potluck, and Justin smoked a pork butt. And I remember it being a big deal of like, well, what did you put in the pork butt? Like, what seasonings did you use? And we had to like verify that the seasonings were sugar-free and gluten-free and all of this stuff. And it's not because of allergies. It's because of preference. And then we
like,
walked
yours and here's ours, and we're happy.
Yeah. We walked down because like a couple blocks from my house was like a retirement apartment complex for older people. And so we walked down there, and we had like little goodie bags that we had made because the ladies did baking. So again, gluten-free, sugar-free cookies that we baked for all these old people, and gospel tracts. And went and knocked on their doors and left them goodie bags to let them know that they are loved and not forgotten. But that's all we ever did. We never went back to make sure they felt loved or felt not forgotten.
Yeah, I want to say, yeah, see, that's like, I mean, our project was something like totally just like, what's the easiest thing that we could do to take to people to let them know that we care about them? Like, that was really, like,
Yep.
Crazy. Was there anything else, like,
Barry
and Miss America, like, did they talk about going to the Philippines? Because we talked about that.
No.
Really big on
no, and
language.
that's what,
did
like,
he talk about being a doctor? Did he, like...
He talked about his practice. He talked about how he wasn't happy in his practice and he was looking for something that was more fulfilling.
Yeah.
So he talked about that. He didn't say what that was. He just said, like, I'm looking for something more fulfilling. And like the couple that were friends with the beer ministry family, the husband in that couple was kind of in the same boat, like looking for a new career. And so like
they were there too.
Yeah. And so
those me too. Me too. Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, God put us in this group, and all these people, we're like in the same place in life. It's so great.
Yeah. Well, this guy, like, he was taking, like, during 40 Days of Community, he was taking the, what do you call it? Like, the test that you take to be a lawyer, like the boards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bar exam.
The bar exam. There you go. He was taking the bar exam. Boards are for medical. There you go.
You're good.
Yeah.
You got there.
I got there. So he was taking the bar exam. This guy was not pre-law. He had not studied law, anything like that. Like, he had just convinced himself that he was smart enough that if he read enough books, he could take this test and become a lawyer. And of course,
it really is your fault, Amanda. It's your
and
fault.
he didn't pass.
It's all
And
your
so
fault.
I know.
I want you
Yeah.
to stop for just a second. You blame me because I put on a Christmas play, and
You
Barry
brought them-
and Miss America came to the Christmas play, and they were like, "This place is great." You did it in this
Mhm.
40 days of community. You did
Well,
it. Tom
started-
gave you the people with money and the guy who never was really educated to be a lawyer, but felt like he could take the bar exam.
Yeah.
And Barry and Miss America.
Mm-hmm. Right after I get done kissing their ass and throwing a funeral for them.
On Patreon, when we talk about the craziness that was in my group, can we talk about also this idea that you can do anything without, like, I was a trash man yesterday, and I don't know what this guy was. I was on the back of a trash truck, and God told me I was going to be a lawyer, so I took the bar exam. Okay, Tom, God told me I was going to be a pastor, so I went and paid for a $40 certificate, and I bought a How to Do Church in 3 Easy Steps kit, and now I'm a pastor. Can we talk about that?
Oh, yeah. 100%. Because, no, it was crazy. And
oh my gosh. I don't know that I know these people because I did not know that. And that is, so many things are just firing in my little brain right now. It was you. You did it. We're not friends anymore. I'm just kidding.
Like, so yes, this is a little bit of a foreshadowing. Like, keep in mind, he's talking to someone who had no knowledge, no education, nothing, and decides he's going to become a lawyer. He tells me he's never read the entire Bible. The official stance through the whole funeral and through this whole 40 days of community is that they've never done church in a corporate collective setting. They have done home church only. Through this group, they shared that they had done home church with another family that homeschooled for a little bit, but there was issues with the children, like their kids and Barry and Miss America's kids. Something happened. They didn't say what it was, but it was enough that they ended that relationship completely and like ghosted them and never talked to them again.
Yeah.
And so, like just weird stuff like that is
told me that they had a bad experience. This was the story that I got too, was that the home church they'd never really done, and when they did try, something bad happened, so they've never been back to any type of church anything. But
they never once mentioned
in a church building. What?
They never once mentioned in the whole 40 days groups that they were going to the Philippines or anything like that.
Yeah.
Never said
that was
anything
really
about
prevalent right then and there. Like, they were fundraising for it. Like, they had another couple from the church going. And this is what's interesting to me. Like, this is what's interesting. I know something about not being with your friends, but like, they weren't really long-term friends with anybody at the church. So why would they not have put them in a group with the couple that was now thinking about going to
the Philippines with them? Yeah.
Yeah. Betty Jo, Betty Jean, Norma Jean.
No, Barbara Jean.
Barbara Jean, thank you. Barbara Jean. And
why wouldn't they put them with Barbara Jean and her husband?
Yeah. Because they made a connection with them already.
Yeah.
This the curating of this group.
Yeah, so weird. The only other thing that happened through 40 Days of Community that I think is worth mentioning, because it will come up with issues here in just a couple months, was one of the groups wanted to go in and clean the kitchen. So we've talked about how we have this big, huge kitchen, right? And all of this stuff. Well, stuff just gets shoved there. So you have a cupboard that's supposed to be the youth cupboard, and you have, the youth group name on the outside
the
of it.
men's breakfast cupboard and the women's
Yeah.
breakfast cupboard and
Yeah.
funeral supplies put away somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. But for the most part, stuff just gets shoved, right? And so the official lead of the kitchen is Pastor Old Reliable's wife.
Which I want to point out, we're 2019. I started going to that church in 2011, and I had no idea that somebody was in charge of the kitchen.
No one did.
Absolutely.
No one did.
No. And I just want to make it a point, like if you think about all the events, so this church is open for people from the community to rent it for birthday parties and weddings and funerals. It gets used for all these events. And then you are allowed to just leave whatever you don't take with you. And we're not going to throw it away. So there's like 27 serving spoons that nothing matches, and it's just all shoved in a drawer because we've had 27,000 events. I just want to give people
not legitimate serving spoons. So someone
maybe the plastic disposable one.
Yeah, someone has a party and they cater in Qdoba. So you have Qdoba wants their chafing dishes and stuff back, right?
Yeah.
But all of the rest of it, the little tongs and spoons and stuff, if you give it back, great. That's not on your contract that you have to return that to a lot of caterers.
Well, cool. Just donate it to the church.
The church would love these cheap ass plastic tongs, or you order a platter of cookies.
Yeah.
And so they come on the plastic tray with the clear plastic bubble top that snaps down over it. We had an entire cupboard full of those.
Yeah. And I just want to give people a picture of it was not it had its own, it did. It had maybe 6 utensils and then everything else was just random stuff from every event that had ever happened.
Yeah. And sippy cups and coffee mugs and all of this stuff that are just left. And so they get washed and they get put in a cupboard.
Yeah.
And so you have all of this stuff just shoved, right? No one knew there was a lead of the kitchen. I didn't even know there was a lead of the kitchen.
Yeah.
And it was kind of my job to know shit like that.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know there was a lead of the kitchen. And so I get word that this group wants to come in and clean the kitchen. So I put it on the list of stuff, and Charlotte realizes it, sees it on the list, and she goes, well, you're going to need to contact Old Reliable's wife and let her know that's what they want to do. And I said, why? And she goes, well, because she's the lead of the kitchen. And I was like, oh, I didn't know we had a lead of the kitchen. I thought Twyla just cleaned the kitchen. Well, no, Old Reliable's wife does that. Because I don't know. I never saw her in the kitchen. I don't know if people thought she was the one coming in and do it. I know for a fact Twyla was cleaning the kitchen because she would be so pissed after men's breakfast when they would just not wipe up the counter and leave eggs and crap on the counter and man clean the kitchen. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's weird. But I talked to Twyla and she's like, no, you have to talk to her. And so I just was like, hey, in a group thing, hey, group who wants to clean the kitchen. Hey, Old Reliable's wife, you two have stake in the game. Here you go. So this group goes in and starts cleaning the kitchen, and Old Reliable's wife comes flippin' undone. She is mad because they want to throw stuff away. They want to throw away all the plastic disposable crap, clean it all out, clear out space and all of this kind of stuff, right? And so essentially what happens is that one group and Old Reliable's group join forces and they clean the kitchen together. And essentially all they do is they use Murphy's Mop and Glow on all the wood cabinets. They deep clean the counters and the floors and all of that, but they don't throw anything away. They don't actually organize. They just clean like what is visible. If you just walk in the kitchen and you just look, what is visibly that you can see, they cleaned it. And then they went through and they set out any coffee mugs or sippy cups like that. They set it all out. And then we had to post like, hey, this group cleaned the kitchen. Look at what they found. Come and claim your water bottle. Claim your kid's sippy cup. Claim your coffee mug. Right? But we couldn't throw them away. Like if you didn't come pick up your stuff, we still couldn't get rid of it. We had to just shove it back in a cupboard. And this one was the first time anyone realized Old Reliable's wife had anything to do with the kitchen. 2, this is the first time I have ever seen that woman angry, upset, anything. She shows up on Thursday nights, pushes buttons in the sound booth to click through slides, and that's all this woman does. Like, she just shows up, says good morning to people, sits on the Sunday morning, listens to the sermon, and then she's out.
Yeah.
She doesn't serve in any other capacity.
No.
But you want to throw away plastic tongs?
Yeah, she came unglued.
Girl came undone.
Yeah. This is my ministry.
That sets the stage for an episode we got coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Because in a couple weeks, someone else wants to touch the kitchen.
Yeah.
And they see a side of her of Old Reliable's wife that no one has ever seen.
Yeah.
Burning Butterflies is a listener-supported podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing supporters on Patreon.
Follow the link in our show notes to learn how you can become a Patreon supporter too. Supporters get exclusive access to bonus content each month, including outtakes, cut content, and supporter-only episodes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on your listening platform.
Burning Butterflies is a production of Asha Media. Thank you for listening.